Going back to the difference in plant and animal cells real quickly before we get on to cell transport is cell walls and chloroplast. And there's also that very large central vacuole that holds water that causes the plants firmness when they're full. But with cell walls and chloroplast, animal cells don't have cell walls. Remember, we have a plasma membrane, but there's no cell wall. And chloroplast is the organelle where photosynthesis takes place. So it would be present in plants, algae, and some bacteria. So plants, algae, and fungi, though, they in most bacteria have this strong cell wall, and the cell wall is very rigid and gives it protection. The cell wall is supportive and it gives it shape to the cell. So you think about plants that live outside and fungus, there's very harsh environments and they need something more protective than just the cell membrane. So that's what the cell wall function is. Also, with bacteria, the cell wall is very helpful in protecting it against certain things that, are designed to kill it, like antibiotics. So cell walls are very protective. Also, in the plant cell wall, if you remember back, cell walls have cellulose in them, and cellulose is a starch. So it was glucose, 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 on and on. And we can't digest it. So this was the carbohydrate that ran through our system as insoluble fiber, or fiber that we can't digest the plant. So that's with your cell wall. Now your chloroplast is the organelle that is carrying out photosynthesis and is only going to be located in plants, algae, and some types of bacteria. Fungus does not carry out photosynthesis. They don't have chloroplast. But the chloroplast use light to make sugar. And of course, with that light, there's also carbon dioxide and water. We will know a lot about chloroplast when we get to photosynthesis. But you also need to know that chloroplast was one of those organelles that they think lived on its own as well. It has its own DNA. So the two organelles that have their own DNA complement are chloroplast in plants and mitochondria in animals. So they do think, when they looked at really close, that the chloroplast also resembled some types of bacteria, and that at one time, because it has its own DNA, it had to have lived on its own. And then the theory is that it also got buddied up against a larger cell and somehow got incorporated and lost its autonomy, or lost its ability to live by itself. So the two, mitochondria and chloroplast, one's in plants, and they have their own DNA. They are very important sites. They definitely are instrumental in making glucose, and then the mitochondria is instrumental in breaking the glucose down into energy. And plants make the glucose, but then, guys, they have to turn around and break it down into their own so they can have energy too. So they need ATP as well. There are some sacs. You don't really have to know this now. I'm not going to ask this to you on your test, but we will know it later, that there are sacs where this photosynthesis is actually occurring, and those sacs are called thylakoids. Like I said, now just know that the two differences in plant cells and animal cells are the cell wall and chloroplast, but then there's also this very, very large vacuole called a large central vacuole where the plant stores its water.